All right, so everyone is asking, what is holding Bitcoin and the cryptocurrency market back from absolutely exploding right now? Are we off the bottom? And what are the key things that are going to happen? Today, we're going to dive into what that is. My name is Paul Barron. Welcome back to TechPath. Here's the key. There are a few points of activity that are really starting to rumble in the market. One, of course, we've talked about here on the show, and that is key players, key investors starting to move into place. The chess pieces are starting to be placed on the board right before the tournament starts, where you're taking on deep blue, all that. The next thing is you need the ETF players at the game table. And the way that we're going to see that is in the process of a few ETFs that have, of course, been proposed to the SEC. You know, one of them on our recent news here is Global X. So let's jump to this. Global X, subsidiary of $560 billion investment manager, files for Bitcoin ETF. Along with the other crew that's out there, you've got, of course, Van Eck and, of course, Ms. Cathie Wood and ARK, who have also filed to get approval for it. So they've essentially come in and said, we're going to jump into play. Again, they're going to be trading on the BZX exchange once and if this occurs. The New York-based Global X currently offers 84 ETFs. Now, here's the thing with this particular company, this particular entity. 84 different ETFs, very similar to what Cathie is trying to build over at ARK, in a good stable of great performing, solid ETFs showing the SEC great management skills, and the SEC comes in and says, yeah, we think you might be the partner to jump in. But when you have 84 ETFs and you've been managed basically a $500 billion asset book in the ETFs themselves, and then you see where this particular company is going, this is a pretty interesting play by Global X. It looks after $35 billion in assets under AUM. In 2018, this was acquired by the Murray Asset Global Investment Group, which is basically a manager of the $560 billion in AUM, according to its website. So here's the thing that was kind of cool. SEC has still not yet approved the Bitcoin ETF, continually delaying decisions. So we're going to be talking about all these delays and what kind of flow does this do to the Bitcoin? That's right, I like it. The flow to the Bitcoin is being disrupted a little bit by the SEC, but fear not, because there is a Wonder Woman. When you look at the people who are defending that, here is SEC Commissioner who has had it with Bitcoin's ETF obstructionist, and I think this is kind of the new Wonder Woman for the Bitcoin crowd. And basically what she's saying is, she's like, hey, listen, there's a lot of people in terms of countries that have already applied, have already started to move in this direction. Why is the United States not necessarily moving at a very fast pace when you look at what's happening with stablecoins, when you look at what's happening with the aspect of the digital dollar? All of these things start to play into this, and it's going to be very interesting, especially with her behind us. She is now Peirce is referred to herself as the crypto mom due to her belief that the U.S. is long past due in approving a Bitcoin ETF. And that's kind of a scenario. But here's the thing. You look at a couple of issues with where and what players are in the game here for how a Bitcoin ETF could take place. In June, ARK Invest filed a disclosure, obviously with the SEC. That's when they did it. 21 shares Bitcoin ETF. There might have been let's see here. There have been 8 other Bitcoin ETFs filed with the agency as well, and this was reported off of CNBC. So you've got 8 now, maybe 9 with this newest one. So the SEC postponed its decision on Van Eck, which was essentially kind of the leader in the potential of being able to roll this out. So that'll be a big play to see if Van Eck is the first one out. And of course, just a little bit later, they also delayed the decision on another Bitcoin ETF, and that was Valkyrie. So lots of delays here. What's pushing the delays? Where are some of these things connected? I think that's the thing we have to get into. And when you look at some of the companies that are really putting the hammer down in terms of allowing trading on cryptocurrency, and I'll just kind of refer to Webull and Robinhood, Robinhood being the biggest, obviously, and especially with them now filing an IPO and or soon to file the IPO, the potential here for a lot of pressure on the SEC is going to be very clear and evident. Let's look here. The SEC once again kicked the can down the road, saying, yep, we're going to hold it back. That is until August 10th. That's the day we're going to be watching for. Let me zoom that up for you. The market watchdog is meant to make a decision by June 26th, but then that's when it said, all right, let's kind of recoil back here a little bit. Here's the issue I keep thinking about is where is the SEC and Janet Yellen on this? Now, Treasury Department doesn't necessarily have the SEC in their roster of approved organizations that they manage and or control, being the Treasury Department. But the SEC is now starting to meet in a lot of these committees in which the Treasury Department is also in. So you've got some interesting relationships starting to occur. And when I say Treasury Department, obviously that's when we get into the U.S. Treasury and what could be potentially happening in both the stablecoin aspect of the industry and also the digital dollar, which we did a video on this, on the digital dollar, its impact on stablecoins, what that means for USDC, Circle, places, and also projects like Tether. All of these kind of flow into this, and I think many of these things are starting to come together in terms of how this strategy is being played out. So it's going to be interesting to see these scenarios as we move on. Investors, here's the thing though, I always say that, here's the thing. But when you've got this much demand, and to this story right here, investors really want a Bitcoin ETF, Van Eck, CEO says, after the SEC delays approval again. This is an issue where we are going to see a huge requirement, and I think a huge run-up to an ETF once one of these gets launched. And what I mean by that is there's such a pent-up demand for an ETF and for general investors and also people who are kind of on the sidelines with large institutional money, family office money, big investors, outside the early adopters, because there's quite an array of early adopters that have already moved into the space in their own direct way. But I think this is going to be one of those scenarios where this absolutely moves us to the next level. And that is going to be a situation. Here was a nice quote they had here. He can't predict what the SEC will do, but investors are really asking for a more efficient access vehicle. So this is going back to where more and more are saying, we got to have this. It must be the scenario that is going to be able to kind of give us at least some sort of equal footing to the rest of the world, especially as ETFs have already been approved in Europe and many countries in Europe where this is already in play. I also want to jump over here to what Valkyrie did. So Valkyrie said, well, let's throw a little fuel on the fire. Let's do another 10 million. This is more of a PR, in my opinion, more of a PR move to drive Bitcoin ETF hopes, just to get back into the scenario of let's keep this front of mind. So they basically raised another 10 million in a Series A round from an interesting roster of backers. This was Precept Capital Management, XBTO, 10X Capital, UTXO Management, basically were the headlines. And this also included Tron founder Justin Sun, Litecoin founder Charlie Lee, and then former Major League Baseball pitcher CJ Wilson. That was a weird one for that. But the point is, I mean, it's not a big amount, not a big amount. I understand 10 million, even though 10 million is a lot of money, but it's not a big amount in this arena. The point is this was a press release. This was basically, let's just keep this in the news cycle and keep things pushing along and moving it to the next level. All right, so back to the Treasury. The point here is Treasury Secretary Yellen asked the U.S. regulators overseeing crypto assets to act quickly to regulate stablecoins. Now let's think about the timeline for a minute here. All of a sudden we have stablecoin regulation coming to the forefront. Very quickly you have the SEC at the same time delaying ETFs. Are these two things related? Is the federal government and the Treasury trying to position or at least maneuver in front of the crypto market before an ETF? Because an ETF gets on, if it literally gets on and let's say it takes 90 days or even 120 days to spin up, the amount of pent-up demand and major market hits in terms of propulsion that this is going to cause and charge is going to be massive, and the potential run-up here is going to be pretty impressive as well. So without the U.S., and I fear that the U.S. is really in a little bit of an 8-ball position here right now, where they don't have a clear strategy in play, both for stablecoins, cryptocurrency, and of course, a digital dollar. All of this, I think, is playing into it. And when you look at the list of people that were in this recent meeting, here it is. U.S. Secretary Janet Yellen asked the regulators overseeing crypto to act quickly, and here they are. Basically, the U.S. Department of Public Affairs announced Monday the outcome of the meeting with President's Working Group. This is the President's Working Group on Financial Markets, PWG, which is the Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen. And look at the list of people that are there. And that, of course, includes the SEC. Here we go. Jerome Powell, SEC Chairman Gary Gensler, CFTC Acting Chairman Rostin Benham, FDIC Chairman Jelena McWilliams, and then the Controller of Currency, Michael Hugh. So you've got basically every money maker and every money mover in the federal government in this particular committee. So all of them have to be at least aware of how this thing is going to play out and why it potentially needs to be in a position to really kind of get the government in a position to be able to act in cryptocurrency and or in digital currency overall, especially from a CBDC aspect. So I think there's a lot of things playing in the background here that is waiting for that ETF trigger to pull. So are we going to get an ETF this year? There's a lot of people that are pointing no. This is probably going to be a 2022. Some people are looking at this and saying, well, could this slow down our bull market and the rest of our bull market to push into 22? I know there's a lot of speculators out there that still point to September or end of year as the end of this bull run and hitting the 100 or, I'm going to stand on my numbers here at 100K by year end for Bitcoin. Or could some of this slowdown push that bull run into 2022? A lot of this has to play into where are the relief valves and what does that mean? So I want to talk about the relief valves. And what I mean by the relief valves are where can we potentially integrate to Bitcoin without buying cryptocurrency? So what are the options there? JP Morgan gives wealth management clients access to Bitcoin and Ethereum funds. This just broke today. Advisors are working for the firm able now to deal with Grayscale Investments and Osprey funds, according to the reports. Here's the big one. Clients will have exposure to Bitcoin and Ethereum through the investment products. And furthermore, advisors have access to 4 Grayscale investment products and 1 of the Osprey funds. This is pretty cool. It's going to open up even a more layer of people to move into Bitcoin. And I do think that this is one of those things that is going to open up that exposure. But Grayscale obviously is the biggest asset manager in crypto, currently managing $27.5 billion. It is owned by Digital Currency Group. Let's be fully aware. If you guys are not tracking Digital Currency Group, you really need to stay on top of that company. They're a big player in the evolution of where the cryptocurrency market is going. They also own CoinDesk, among many other projects out there, as well as these types of projects here when it comes to the investment funds. So I want to jump to the Grayscale roster here. Remember, Grayscale, also Digital Currency Group, all tied together here, okay? So let's jump to their roster of their access point. These are all trusts. So you're not buying Bitcoin directly like you would be in an ETF, so to speak, but you are getting access through a trust organization. So the Bitcoin Trust itself, you can kind of see the numbers here. Average holding shares, 2931. This is a little over 4% daily change. That, of course, is the over-the-counter symbol GBTC. Then they go into the BAT Trust, which is another token project. If you guys have not looked at Basic Attention Token, you should check that one out. Cash Trust, Chainlink, Decentralized Trust, which is the DeFi, the Ethereum Trust. Look at the numbers here with Ethereum, and then, of course, the Ethereum Classic even. Filecoin, Litecoin. You could just go down the list here, including the small DeFi fund, and then the large cap, digital large cap fund that's also on here. So this is an impressive roster that's opening up back to this reference here, which is JP Morgan. They are aligning with some of the most strategic players, that being Grayscale and Digital Currency Group. I keep moving it, and there's starting to become kind of a knight of the round table here. And if you look at who's at that round table right now, there are a lot of players who are very, very close to, and I think in some cases, It's a good thing for Bitcoin. It's a good thing for cryptocurrency because I believe that the Sir Galahad of this particular scenario is Saylor, Michael Saylor. But when you look at the Knights of the Round Table and what's happening there, you've got people in there like Jack Dorsey, Cathie Wood. Of course, Elon is there. We'll call him the court jester. And then you start to run into the nation states, which are Grayscale, and of course, Digital Currency Group. Then we go into JP Morgan. Now let's go further into a lot of these potential ETFs. And there you have an evolution of where all of this is pointing, and layer in the particular kingdom, and that is, of course, is the United States, and how we're going to address Bitcoin and its future as a cryptocurrency or store of value, or cryptocurrency in general from a stablecoin aspect. All of this is tied together, is the point. So you've got to keep your head around this, especially if you're over here as an individual investor and you're jumping into the market. Now remember, we do these market movers time to time. The idea here behind a market mover is pretty simple. As you can see, we're lining up a ton of editorial. We look at some data that supports our information and findings. We pull it all together. Hopefully it gives you at least a roadmap to go out and do your own investment strategies. It is not investment advice. It's investment opinion and how we look at it. Hopefully this is something that starts moving you in the right direction to say, hey, am I in at the right time? Is it too late to buy Bitcoin? Is it too late to get into these DeFi projects? My quick answer is to anyone I talk to, anyone for me, we are in at the very beginning of where this is moving. If you're listening and watching this channel, you are too. You're at the beginning of what could be a revelation in terms of the monetary system. And I think, as you can see, all the power players moving into position on the chess table, all of the key nation states moving into position to position against and or for some sort of digital currency future, whether that be China, Europe, which we're going to talk about the digital euro, because that's a big play in this, and Europe has just put into play a very big action. I'll bring that video back to you. If you want to see more or listen to more about how this starts to work, especially around when you look at major countries, and what I mean by that is the EU, the United States, China, and some of Asia as we play this out. It's going to be a big factor. Put the comments below. If you want to reach out to me direct, you can always hit me up on Twitter, and that's just @PaulBaron. I'll catch you next time right here on TechPath.